Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spare a Thought, the podcast where I try to shine a light on the people, ideas, issues, and organisations that are often overlooked or misrepresented in the media. I'm your host, Tom Spare. In today's episode, I talk to Kim Mamhende, the Chief of Staff at the CAI, a Swansea-based charity that supports migrant, immigrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking communities in Wales. Together, we speak about Kim's upbringing, the work of the CAI, how work can help migrants and immigrants integrate into society, why the UK wouldn't run without migrants, and how to overcome misconceptions about immigration. So let's get into it and spare a thought for supporting migrant communities.
My name is Kim Mamhende. I'm the Chief of Staff for the CAI. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. So I grew up in Zimbabwe. I was born and raised there in what I would say a family that just really believed in the power of hard work and just education. So really, I think for me, from a very young age, I just understood that any opportunities that I have or any opportunities that anybody has really can change the course of their life. But opportunities on their own aren't enough. You know, people need to have the tools, they need to have confidence, they just need to have knowledge to enable them really to navigate whatever opportunities that are presented to them. And I think a lot of that is up to what they can do as an individual, which is that personal responsibility. And I think that personal responsibility is what has carried me in my life. So, as I said, I grew up in Zimbabwe. At the age of 18, 19, I moved to the UK. So rather, I moved to Swansea to do my undergrad degree at Swansea University, which was in medical biochemistry. And yeah, since then, over time, I've just really been embedded in my community and just drawn to initiatives really that empower people to be their best selves. So if there's anything I could say about me, is I think really at my core, I'm really passionate about helping people be the best version of themselves in whatever way that might look like. And that's really a guiding principle of every single thing that I do, every project that I'm involved in, every activity that I do, even how I make decisions in my own personal life, really. And it's why I even think about the work that I'm doing with the CAI, not really as work. It's more of just that part of that calling, part of that passion. And why sometimes it is definitely, we were speaking just before we started recording about that whole separation, which is why it is difficult to have any separation because it's really just part of who I am and my passions. I came to Swansea and I've made Swansea my home and absolutely love it here. I think it's the best city in Wales. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. And thank you for joining me. So you're the Chief of Staff for the CAI. For those who may not know, what is the organisation, what are the main missions, and what sort of purpose does it serve?
So the CAI is a charitable organisation. We are based in Swansea, but we're working across Wales with other offices as well in Carmarthenshire. And really, we exist to empower ethnically diverse people with a focus on migrants to thrive, basically, in a nutshell. But our work really is focused on economic empowerment. And when I say that, I mean through helping people with the employability skills to help them get jobs, but also entrepreneurship is a big part of that. Helping people set up their own businesses or scale up or grow their businesses. And the reason around that is because, again, economic empowerment affords people financial stability. As we know, the two are really interlinked. And often when people are stable financially, then they can be a bit freer. And so that's sort of the core area that we're working in. So if people have got good jobs, if they're setting up businesses and they've got the right support systems, then they can thrive. So actually, it's nice that we're having this conversation now this year because it's our 10th anniversary this year. So a decade of us, the CAI, existing. So Frank, who's our CEO, founded the organization really based out of, his experience, his own lived experience, and also the experience that mirrors a lot of the people that are in our community that we support, which is just really there was a need for that bespoke support for migrant communities. We were struggling in terms of being supported to achieve their goals, achieve their dreams. And that's really what we are here to do. So at the heart of what we're doing is what we call the Val Stream. And the world's dream is simply a notion where aspiration meets opportunity, where everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of where they've come from, what they've gone through in life, is able to succeed, is able to thrive right here in Wales without having to go anywhere else. And why that's possible is because we've got an ecosystem that is supportive, a society that is accepting, and people that are empowered with confidence within themselves and are actually able to dream big and work towards achieving those dreams to a point that they become reality. So that's really the mission that we're on, making sure that everyone can actually achieve their world's dream. And sometimes it's actually helping them identify what their world's dream is in the first place. And then we go on that journey of helping them achieve it. Beyond that, it's also the world dream is about addressing the brain drain. We know a lot of young people are leaving Wales. Not only young people, if we think even to our community that we support, which is migrants, primarily actually refugees and asylum seekers. Once people become refugees, they really just want to leave Swansea. They really want to leave Wales because they feel like there isn't the support here for them or there isn't enough opportunities for them. Where actually there is a lot that Wales has going on. It's often about actually people knowing about it in the first place, but also support provision fitting people's needs. And that's what we are trying to help really with our work at the CAI, but also supporting other mainstream organizations to be able to be more inclusive, really, in terms of supporting the needs of diverse audiences of people. So yeah, that's our work in a nutshell in terms of the purpose of what we're doing.
Can you sort of share some examples of like key projects or initiatives that the CAI is currently working on, or maybe achievements that, projects that have happened in the past as well?
I think before I go into projects that we're running at the moment, I think it's worth me talking a little bit about the approach that we take as an organization, which is very much a holistic approach, which realizes that people are multifaceted, meaning they've got multifaceted needs and challenges that they face, which often need to be tackled, right? Before a person can think about getting a job or setting up that big business that they always dreamt of, they need to be stable in their lives. They need to have their basic needs met, whether it be food, whether it be housing, shelter, whatever it may be. So for us, our holistic approach means we work with firstly, person-centered, working with the individual that's in front of us and finding out what those issues are that might stop them from actually achieving whatever their goals or their dreams are. And once those needs are met, then we can work with them on that journey to whether it be employability or entrepreneurship. So that's the approach that we take. And we do so really mainly by breaking down barriers. The barriers that the communities that we support often face, I think we can split into maybe three different subheadings. First one being personal, and personal barriers can be anything really from low confidence, trauma affecting people's mental health, anything to do with maybe even imposter syndrome, just anything that a person might be facing personally that could stop them from achieving their goals or even dreaming any bigger than their current circumstance. So that's one. We've got a range of projects really that are aimed at supporting people to build their confidence, and that's mostly through our well-being activities. Then the second bit, sometimes in terms of barriers people might face, are the circumstantial barriers. Again, for example, if we're talking about asylum seekers, the mere fact that they're asylum seekers often means that they're not able to work. So someone might actually have a goal or a dream to work as a manager at a certain place, but in this moment, they're probably not able to do that because they've got restrictions to their leave in the UK. So again, those are things that we call circumstantial, but it's us helping them really in that moment, in them considering what else would they be doing. So, for example, it could be volunteering, etc. So, yeah, another one could be language. Again, a lot of the people that we support don't have English as their first language, they even speak English. So it's helping them get through that barrier first before we can even think about, okay, this is your business. How do we help you bring it to life? And then the last one that I wanted to mention was the systemic barriers that people face. I say systemic, it's often really sometimes issues within mainstream service provision, which isn't really considerate of the needs of migrant communities, refugee, asylum-seeking communities. Or secondly, just misconceptions or negative biases really that people may have around these groups of people. So in terms of what's exciting about what we're doing currently, for the past decade, again, we've been working hard for our community, working to support them on a, face-to-face individualized basis. But now I think we've had a new direction that we're going in, which is actually about tackling the systems change. It's recognizing that if we actually want to change things for the long term, if we want to change things for future generations to come, we have to work at a systemic level and investigating really what are these systems that continue to maybe cause our communities to face the difficulties and the challenges that they continue to face, and working at that higher level, that's not only at a community base. So one of the projects I can give you an example of is our Ending Workplace Exploitation project, which is a new and trailblazing project that we started the year before, actually. And really at the core of it is recognizing that migrant communities are one of the groups that are most susceptible to unfair treatment in the workplace, but not only unfair treatment, exploitation in the workplace, and also harm. So if that's the reality, what can we do to solve it? We are working at different levels for this. Firstly, it's still the community level, which is about increasing awareness, really, of migrants, of the rights that they've got within a workplace. Again, if they're empowered with the awareness of their rights, then they can be better advocates for themselves within the workplace. So a big piece of work we're doing around that is just really sessions, one-to-one support, group session, a guide that's available on our website for them to be able to actually know more about what their rights are, particularly considering a lot of them this their first job in the UK. Then another level is then working with employers and really trying to investigate what barriers do they face in being able to recruit and to retain people from diverse backgrounds. It's as simple as that, really. And how can their workplace be more inclusive and more considerate to diverse groups of people? And the third level then is policymakers. What policies are existing that continue to make this problem a reality, right? So this is, one of the most exciting projects for me personally, really, because we're covering, I think, really we're working at all bases. And hopefully, again, as we keep on going, we are changing things for the future, really, for future generations to come, a bit at a time. So if I come back to employers a little bit, what's exciting, what we're working on at the moment is a migrant positive pledge, which is going to be a pledge that's available for any employer, any business within Wales to be able to sign up to, which is their commitment to actually providing an inclusive and safe work environment for migrants. And I think it's the direction that we need to be moving towards, really, in Wales, where, again, across sectors, private, third sector, public sector, we're working towards really just creating a Wales that's more inclusive, a Wales that anyone really can be able to thrive in whatever sense that looks like. And again, employers play a big role in that because, a lot of people are working. And again, if your workplace can welcome you and make you feel like you belong, then I think that does a lot for people's integration in our country, really. So I think that's one element that I'm really excited about. I'm also really excited about our Community Enterprise Hub, which we've recently opened in the heart of Swansea on Oxford Street. So again, this is a vibrant community space for the community, by the community, where it's a central meeting space where they can receive a whole host of support to meet their needs, but also equally it's a space for them to be helped really with the integration, social activities going on, just a vibrant, busy space where people can receive really all the support that they might need. So we've got our building over 3 floors. The ground floor is our main event space. The first floor, meeting room and co-working space. And then the top floor, again, meeting rooms and more, a media room, actually a podcasting space, which people can book and use for podcasting as well. So I'm really quite excited about that because Swansea has needed a space like that, a welcoming, free space where people can actually take ownership of. But not only that, I think what really excites me about it is it's a space that we want to raise aspirations. The Community Enterprise Hub has been our Welsh dream as the CAI, right? And what we want is to inspire people, to show them what's actually possible when you think and you dream, right? And we are, again, going to be having support providers come in, different people, again, even for the podcast, hosting different people on there that have actually achieved things that our community needs, right? So apart from the actual practical support, the aspiration is a big part of it. And raising people's goals, we've got the first green roof that's being used for training purposes on Oxford Street, which is exciting because we'll be running a few training groups on there, again, improving the biodiversity of our city and making it greener. And just, apart from it being more aesthetic, it's also really good for people's well-being, etc. So just looking forward to seeing that thrive and just how that evolves, and just more importantly, having the community be able to access it and reap just all the benefits of, the work that's been done for them on there.
That's great. And What I think is quite interesting about the Kai is that it is a holistic approach to things, right? Because it's about supporting migrants that that either are recent or more established in Wales, and it's providing training and it's giving that sort of the confidence to people to do well and to sort of mix with wider communities. But also it's that policy side and that influencing too, because I think that's where a lot of charities and charitable organizations probably fall short, is where they're not able to that they work in a silo and don't necessarily think about the bigger picture. So it seems like there's quite a lot of things going on at the same time within the organization that enable that.
Exactly. And, you were spot on there, because if we really want, things to improve for communities, then we have to take that multifaceted approach. Otherwise, we keep on running at the same place. So just focusing on supporting that community and not changing the bigger picture, then we're always just going to be here. I always say, even for us, the goal is to make organizations, specialist organizations like ourselves, redundant, because, if things were working the way they're supposed to, we didn't need to have organizations that are working with a certain, if we're all thinking about supporting people in the most inclusive way, which is really just deal with people as they present in front of you without any preconceived notion, without trying to generalize people and put people in certain boxes, then wouldn't need specialist organizations, right? But because of the way we shaped our society, now we need specialist provision that considers that certain people have got language barriers, certain people have got trauma that might affect their understanding of X, Y, Z, right? So for me, the goal, I think I would say, that we should all have as organizations probably is to actually make ourselves redundant, to be in a place where we are not needed, because actually mainstream provision is understanding and inclusive to everyone and respects everyone's needs, however they might present.
What would you say are the most rewarding parts of working for the Kai, and what are some of the biggest challenges?
I guess the response for rewarding is pretty easy, right? It's literally just seeing people progress, seeing people move on. And what's always quite nice is, people come back and, they share really what they've gotten from the work that we are doing with the guys. So seeing the impact we're having in the community is obviously the most rewarding thing. Moving people from a place of struggle, from difficulty, to a place where they're confident within themselves, and they are actually more stable and thriving. There's nothing better than that. So I'll even give an example of some of the work that we've done. One individual, he came to the UK, he was pretty young with his young family as well. Came from Portugal without literally a word of English that he could speak. He was attending college lessons for ESOL, but then also equally started attending our center to receive support. So for us, our approach is always trying to integrate people, right? Trying to get them out there into really the real world as quickly as possible, because that accelerates their growth and really their path for success. So how we supported is he started running a volunteer program, and working really through our volunteering program at our cafe. And within that, he then got an opportunity to work at a restaurant. And this restaurant was a Portuguese speaking restaurant, but it also gave him an opportunity to be practicing his English, because they would also be pushing him. And equally, when he was volunteering in our restaurant, he'd be doing the same. So he always had an aspiration to set up his own restaurant. Actually, that's why he was keen on, leading on our restaurant, as well as doing the training course at the other one. And it took him a bit of time, but last year he finally launched his restaurant business. And he's actually one of the people that we use when we run activities, events, etc., in terms of catering. So that just shows sort of like the full circle thing. Again, his English language, you wouldn't really think that, he's literally only learned English in a couple of years, right? But apart from that, he left his full-time job to be able to set up his restaurant. And, that's become a thriving business in itself as well, right? And for me, when you ask what's most rewarding, it's just seeing that journey and where he is now from where he started. And I think there's nothing better than that. If we even think about our demographics, refugees, asylum seekers, they're some of the most driven people that you'll meet, right? Come with so much energy. Fortunately, they will have faced a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, not only in their countries, but also even in them settling into the UK. But also the energy is still there. So, we just have a part to play in continuing to light that fire and to make it bigger, really, and help them in terms of achieving whatever their goals are. So, yeah, for me, I think there's nothing better than seeing a person progress in that manner.
And that's a really good example as well, right? Of someone who came through the organization and not only had like language barriers to overcome, but in terms of the work environment as well. I mean, it's one thing learning a language, and then it's another working in a different language. But then also having that ambition and a dream to set up a restaurant, and then you still having that relationship as well. I think that's so cool. I mean, that's sort of a perfect summation of the work you do. So yeah, that's
fine. I think we often even like to think of it like working through the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where obviously at the bottom of the pyramid is really just those basic needs, right? And for us, it's making sure that you've got those basic needs met. We work with you to a point where you are self-actualized, but also what does self-actualization look like? A lot of which is also giving back, which is what's quite nice about what we see within the community is people that have actually achieved that success want to pay it forward, because no one wants anyone else to be going through the same difficulties that, they faced. So it's always wanting to give back and to hopefully improve the community. And so, yeah, that just informs really the work that we're doing in terms of the approach that we take. In terms of challenges, I would say it's more external. Right now, I think there's a growing attack on EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion, on the movement, generally speaking, right? It's becoming an increasingly sort of difficult space, I guess, to operate in, especially even with, this negative rhetoric around migration. So I think obviously it makes our work a lot more urgent, but also sometimes makes it, a lot more challenging. So that's what I would say. But apart from that, it's also just about the narratives that are around all of that. Again, what we see in mainstream media is often negative. But that's why for us, we are always quite keen on showing the inverse of that, right? Perpetuating positive narratives, showing the success, the contributions of migrants, all of that really to hopefully change people's perceptions on what actually migration is all about. And also, again, remaining steadfast in what we're doing. Because again, for example, last year we had the riots happening. Thank goodness we didn't have any rioting that happened in Wales, even though there were a lot of threats of the far right moving in, etc. But again, you can imagine the level of anxiety that was within our community during that time space, right? So all of those things just make it obviously difficult, not only for ourselves as an organization to operate, but also really exacerbates some of the challenges and the issues that the community members that we support face. But through it all, again, it just underscores why our work is really important, and there's really more than anything more fuel to just help us try to achieve really the goals that we've got.
what I find interesting is that people who talk negatively about immigration, in the general population, and migration and immigration, they will quote like the talking points that are in the Daily Mail and in the Telegraph and
Exactly.
in the right-wing press. But when you press them on it and they talk about their local community and they talk about the people they have interactions with, and such and such from this place and such and that, and I've met a lovely chap from blah blah blah, then that you see a disconnect, that on the face of it they present a particular view, and then in actuality, human to human, they have a different view. And I find that really fascinating. There's a difference between what people say and actually their actions.
I think that's true to some extent, because I feel like some people have also really then just taken on these views and almost become really negative and extreme in their own right. And that really informing how they treat people on a day-to-day basis, which is really where the fear generally stems from. But I think you're absolutely right in terms of certain people, really, there is a disconnect because they're just latching on to this rhetoric that's there out there, because it hooks people, right? These are very punchy, small punchy statements that are hooking people, right? And making people feel like understood and seen, etc. Whereas actually, you do, like you said, try to investigate that further. it sort of crumbles a little bit, right? Which is why, for me, I think it's important for us to try to facilitate as much as possible spaces or conversations that, if we've got different views on things, it doesn't mean we can't talk. But I think increasingly we are in a space where people that have different views on things can't talk, they can't accept each other. And that's just going to worsen the situation or the issues that we're in right now. What we should be able to have is open conversations, hearing each other's point of views. We might not agree, we might not change it, but at least if we have the conversations, actually, inadvertently, I think we might actually end up changing things for, whatever direction you want them to be in. But if we're not having conversations in the first place, then I think, yeah, we're just always going to be in this cycle, really.
Yeah, for sure. And the reality is, without migrants, most of our economy wouldn't run, our NHS wouldn't function, and the football matches people go to see at a high level wouldn't happen. So it just, like, so much of British, Welsh, English, Scottish, Northern Irish life is reliant on people from other places who have made Wales and other places their home. And it, for me, like, I grew up in Dover, and so 63% voted for Brexit, despite the fact that so many jobs were reliant on the EU and trade and all those other things that come along with it. And it's just wild that places where, like, Dover has relatively low actually immigration, because most people arrive in Dover and then go to other places. And yeah, I just never really got it until I came to Cardiff, where I found a city that for hundreds of years has been welcoming people from all over the world. Then I felt, oh, this is cool. This actually works, It's bizarre.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people don't also take time to even just investigate and think about that a little bit more, because, like you're saying, it's everywhere. We see it in terms of, our healthcare providers. We see it football, but people don't really take time to think, in terms of that perspective. But also, I think generally, this whole issue of the rise in negativity, the, anti-immigration rhetoric that's there, a lot of it is just people, broadly speaking, being like really frustrated, people struggling, they're frustrated about so many other issues, probably a lot to do with our public services, and for them become almost like a scapegoat, right? It's easy to blame it on the refugees that are coming and taking our appointments at the GP, or putting us in a housing crisis, or making sure that we are not having enough jobs, right? Whereas actually, it's not actually the refugees, right? There's so much there. So for me, I think, again, the core is just what would be ideal is really our politicians really focusing on these issues that people are struggling with. Cost of living is still, increasing, right? Needs to be fixed. And I think, that has to be done in tandem with, obviously, us shifting narratives from where we're at, for us to be able to have at least more positive discussions or space around immigration.
What do you think can be done to help reduce that hostility and shift the public conversation?
I think, firstly, the real concerns that people have should be tackled, right? So a lot of it is obviously the responsibilities that decision makers have to play. But I think apart from that, it's also taking responsibility in terms of on a community and individualized level, right? When we are seeing certain things happen, it's not just being bystanders. Actually, we need allyship. I think, again, earlier we were talking about men needing to be more feminists, right? We need more men to be feminists, rather, right? Again, that's an example of allyship. And I think we need more allyship when it comes to, again, shifting conversations around immigration in our circles. When we are hearing conversations that are going really in the wrong direction, I think just being bold enough to challenge it, but sometimes not even just challenging it, it's just having an open discussion about it. And sometimes actually just creating that platform, you put space for someone to actually change their mind. So I think us as individuals, as community members, have a big role to play. Again, social media has become a tool that people use really for bad sometimes, especially if we think about Twitter or X. And again, easy for people to be hiding behind screens. But again, we also, again, as the public that engages with certain posts, have a role to play in what we're engaging in and sort of the methods that we're using to do that. So I think, yeah, if we all take this as our responsibility, right? To take that as a challenge for ourselves, then we can help in doing that. And also, again, when we speak about changing the narrative, mainstream media, I think, has become really toxic, like we've said, especially when it comes to this issue. But we've got alternative sources of media. That's the beauty of what we have with the internet now, right? Podcasts like this. So if we could be having more conversations like this, more written content about, the positivity that we want to perpetuate, then that's going to help massively.
And just finally, as we come to an end, what role do you think, if any, does entrepreneurship play in giving people purpose and meaning in their lives, but also, I suppose, in bringing communities together as well?
So with entrepreneurship, particularly in Wales, I'd probably say entrepreneurship forms the backbone really of our economy. Small to medium enterprises really do, right? And more than anything, before we even go on the roles that it has on an individualized basis for our economy, it plays an important role. So, just needs to be done to support small businesses to thrive. But really, in terms of on an individualized basis, I always like to say, instead of waiting for someone to give you a seat at the table, why not curate your own table, right? And I feel like that's the amount of autonomy that entrepreneurship affords people, particularly people that might be struggling in terms of employment for one reason or another. It could be a mother with caring responsibilities that needs a little bit more flexibility that she can't possibly get in the sector that she wants to work in, right? Entrepreneurship potentially is something for her to consider, and it gives her back that autonomy to be able to actually financially contribute in her household, but actually also whilst doing something that she probably really likes and enjoys and cares about, right? So for me, entrepreneurship is empowering for our communities and just really creates more opportunities, particularly for people that struggle or people who feel or can't see opportunities for themselves there. But obviously, it's not without its challenges. It's obviously a very lonely journey, sometimes very difficult to navigate with a lot of different barriers, whether it be financial or, like we mentioned, the imposter syndrome, whatever it may be. But I think at the end of the day, that's why organizations such as ourselves, the KAI, exist, because it's just, someone's critical friend. We're there to hold your hand, to support you. So we really need in Wales is more entrepreneurs and more people championing entrepreneurship if we really want to be creating a thriving and self-sustaining economy in terms of bringing communities together. Again, that's businesses just do that inadvertently, right? Particularly businesses that are embedded within the community. I think Wales has a strong history of that. If you even think about the steel industry, before that, it was the coal mining industry, right? And just how communities form around that. So I think it's not only on such a large scale, but even, again, the local bakery and how often whoever runs that business is probably the most sort of popular person within that area, right? So I think it does a lot more than we give it credit for. And hence, again, really just the call to action is just having more support for entrepreneurs and more support for people who want to try it out. Sometimes people don't even have that opportunity or feel like that opportunity is not for them, but that's what we need to be encouraging more of. At least people are testing it out. Sometimes it's not for them and that's okay. But if it is for them, then maybe that's actually just a win for our local economy, for our local community, for everybody, really. So just more support, as much more support is needed, really, for it.
Thanks, Kim, for taking part today and for being an excellent guest and for being so generous with your time. And that concludes this episode on supporting migrant communities. A big diolch yn fawr iawn, thank you very much, to my brilliant guest, Kim Mamhende from the KAI. To keep having conversations like this, I need your help and support. Please rate and subscribe to the show. The more people who rate and subscribe, the more episodes I can put out there. Please be sure to share the show widely with family, friends and colleagues. The title track for this show is Young Shall Grow. Credit and thanks to Afro Cluster, Magugu and Asha Jane. The show was researched, written and edited by me, Tom Spare. This has been a Be The Change Media Network production. Thanks for listening.
Whether you like them or not, young shall shout.